Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and you are watching The Nerdy Grail. Now, in today's video, I have got a movie review for you, and that movie is on the sequel to the 2016 movie by Disney, Moana. So this is Moana 2. Now, I loved the original Moana. I thought that Moana 1 was really, really good. I thought that the songs were brilliant, the animation was stunning. The cast were brilliant, and the plot was fairly sound and straightforward and had really good pacing. So I was quite interested and looking forward to a sequel to Moana, with pretty much most of the same cast returning again, with Auli'i Cravalho playing Moana again, and Dwayne Johnson playing Maui. Those two together are fantastic, so I was really looking forward to seeing Moana 2, and so when it came out in the cinemas yesterday, I had to go and see it. And I've walked out of the cinema feeling a bit underwhelmed, I think, personally. It was a little bit disappointing overall, but in this little review, I'm gonna talk about the positives of the movie, because there were some positives about Moana 2. It wasn't all bad. But then I am also going to talk about the negatives as well, because they need to be addressed. And then I'm just going to give you my final thoughts on the film as a whole, really. But yeah, I'd say it was a little bit underwhelming. I was expecting a lot more, but there was some reasons behind the scenes for that happening. For example, apparently this was originally going to be penned as an animated TV series as opposed to a film, and that really does show in the movie. But I'm going to waste no more time. I'm going to jump straight into this review of Moana 2, and we're going to begin with the positives of the movie. So like I said, I'm going to begin with the positives of the movie. Let's start on a high note. So this movie takes place 3 years after the events of the original Moana, and it sees Moana still going on her crazy little hijinks, out to sea to find new land, to see new people. And that's the whole plot of this movie, is to try and find and reunite the people of the ocean. That's the adventure that Moana is setting out on. And she's got a new crew by her side, along with some returning friends such as Maui, to join her on that crazy adventure. But the positives, I would say, is the first positive, I'd say the acting. So the acting, the voice acting is still really strong and good. Everyone does a fantastic job in their role. It was really great, like I said, to see the returning main two stars coming back as Moana and Maui. It was nice to see, we got Alan Tudyk, who came back to play Hey Hey the chicken, which I love. Hey Hey. Hey Hey's like one of my favourite characters. It's just an insane character. Because this is a spoiler review as well, I should point that out. In a post-credit scene, we do actually get to see Jermaine Clement, who comes back to play Tamatoa, that giant crab who sung the song Shiny in the first one, which I thought was brilliant. I loved seeing him again. It was great. And there was some great new characters as well. Like I said, Moana got a new crew. One of those was a character called Loto, who is like this builder of all these boats and these crazy gadgets, and was voiced by Rose Matafeo, who's fantastic, and she does a brilliant job, and she's thoroughly entertaining. There was another character called Keely, who's this old farmer or guy who like grows crops and food, played by David Fane, who was this like grouchy old man who sort of learnt to love the sea by the end. He was quite a nice little addition to the cast. Obviously you've got Moana, and obviously Maui returns as well, but there was also then this other character called Moni, who is this storyteller guy. He uses like these tapestry and these cloths to make stories, and he can read into the stories, which I thought was really, really interesting and came in handy throughout the movie as well. And he's also a huge fan of Maui. He's like a Maui enthusiast, so whenever he interacts with Maui, he gets a bit like when you go to a Comic-Con and you meet all your favourite stars, you get a bit starstruck. And there was loads of times where he would just like pass out, or he'd act a bit weird, and Maui would be a bit creeped out. So it was a cool little core crew. And there was some other new characters as well, like they introduced us to Samea, who is Moana's little adorable sister. She was just a bundle of laughs and a bundle of joy, and gave you that a bit more of an emotional attachment whenever Moana went out on her journeys. So that was quite nice as well. And then you've got the main threats of this movie. You've got this god of the sea, Nalo, who's the one who separated all the people, all the different communities all across the ocean, and is trying to keep them separate so he can remain all powerful. And that's, like I said, that's what Moana and Maui and the crew are trying to solve. They're trying to reunite the people of the ocean and defeat Nalo. In the trailers as well, they did also introduce us to another new character, and I wrote it down, Matangi, who was this like eccentric bat demi-goddess character who's really, really good actually when she was in it, but she wasn't actually in it that much, which I think was a little bit of a shame. But when she was in it, she was really cool, and her interactions with Maui were great. So that was all good. So I'd say the characters that they introduced and the voice acting was still pretty good, if I'm being perfectly honest, in my personal opinion, because you've got to keep in mind that this is my opinion. And if you disagree, that is also perfectly fine. So I thought that was really good, and I enjoyed all the characters. And then the other positive, I would say, of Moana 2, and this is almost to be expected, really, with Disney, and you'd hope that it would be expected, is that the animation was still really, really good. Visually, Moana 2 was stunning to look at. Like, it all felt crisp, it felt clear, it was smooth in the transitions. It was really beautifully stunning. It was a visual masterpiece to see on the screen. So I really, really enjoyed that, and I appreciated that. So I'm glad they continued that from the first one, because that was one of the core things that I loved about the first one, was that it was visually nice to see. So that was good. So yeah, I'd say definitely the visuals were there, and the acting for the most part was pretty solid. However, if I'm being perfectly honest, I would say that's probably where my positives end and my negatives begin. So I'm going to be right back, and we are going to discuss, unfortunately, the negatives of Moana 2. Okay, and like I said, that's where the positives end and the negatives, unfortunately, begin. Because if I'm being brutally honest, do I prefer Moana 2 over Moana 1 or Moana 1 over Moana 2? I would have to say I still actually prefer the original. I think Moana 1 is better than Moana 2, if I'm being honest. Now, there's lots of reasons why this could be. Like I said, the fact that it originally was intended to be an animated TV series, I think really shows in this movie, because there's a few scenes, which is one of the negatives, where it does feel a bit choppy, where you sort of end one scene and begin another and feel like there's a big time skip there, where maybe it might have gone to a break if it was on TV, or it would be the cliffhanger to an episode, and then you would start right up, leading on from that in the next episode, especially at the start. The first probably half hour to 40 minutes felt like that more so, before Moana started setting off on her journey. So that, I think, was unfortunate. It made the pacing of the film feel very off, because it would just jump around, and it felt like they would do one thing and then immediately something completely different would start. It felt at times not very coherent, which was a shame, because I felt like the first one had a nice smooth flow and every scene flowed into each other quite naturally, whereas here it doesn't feel as natural. It gets more natural as it goes on, but especially at the start it feels very choppy. Not rushed, but just choppy, which really took me out. I didn't feel as immersed as I did in the first one, so that was unfortunate. Another negative I do have, and this one might be a bit of a controversial one, because I'm not 100% certain where people stand on this, but if I'm being honest, the songs, the music in Moana 2, even though it's still good, I would say Moana 1 had better music. When Maui had his song You're Welcome in the first one, that was like a classic song that I still can't get out of my head. Even before going to see Moana 2, I still couldn't get You're Welcome out of my head. There was a nice little line, though, I will say, in Moana 2, where he does say You're Welcome right at the end, and it was like, yeah, I like that little nod there. But his song in this one, it wasn't as good, in my opinion. It was still a good song, and saying that now, all the songs in this were decent, but were they as strong or as powerful as the first one? Not really, in my personal opinion. I won't be singing any of the songs, I think, from Moana 2 anytime soon, if I'm being honest. The songs from Moana 1, like Shiny and You're Welcome, are all a lot, way better, if I'm being perfectly honest. So, yeah, I would say musically, even though still strong, it's not as strong. So that was a little bit of a letdown because I was really looking forward to getting a new song stuck in my head from Moana 2, but that's not the case. So yeah, musically, it was a bit off. And just, it felt a bit like a jumbled mess of a plot, really. There was characters that were introduced, and I think that's the problem, is they don't know really what they want to do going forward, because there was a post-credit scene, like I said, between Nalo, the main villain who got defeated, Matangi, who was the bat-eccentric demigoddess, who was made out in the trailer to be a main villain, but was quite a throwaway character in this and was barely in it. And it's a shame because she was great when she was on screen, but she just got forgotten about and never got returned to. And that was like, I even said to my fiance at the time, like, where did she go? And obviously they introduced Jermaine Clement back as Tamatoa. But it just seems like it's a setup movie for either a Moana 3 or actually doing a spin-off TV show. And I'm not 100% on board with that, because then it makes the film a bit of a throwaway. You know, you need a film to be able to stand on its own. And if it's just a setup, then it doesn't stand on its own two legs. Especially then if the future of movie or TV series that you're doing falls flat, it then has a domino effect and makes the movie that preceded it bad as well. So I'm not a big fan of that. There was a lot of characters and plot threads that just got left. It was nice introducing Moana's sister, but I feel like they just did that just so you could have that emotional tie. I feel like it would have been better and more interesting in the plot if she actually had snuck on board the ship to go with Moana. Then you'd have that more sense of danger. Because to be honest, I never felt like Moana and the crew were fully in danger. It felt too easy them getting out of stuff. Like Maui felt like the get out of jail free card in this movie a lot more than he did in the first one. So when they did try to stand on their own 2 feet, it was a bit of a disaster. And at the end, obviously, at the end of the big conflict as well, when Moana does save the day, and unfortunately she does get mortally wounded, and we think that she could be gone, and Maui loses all of his tattoos. I thought he was going to be have been reverted back to just being a human again. He wouldn't be a demigod anymore. And then Moana got given a little tattoo, and we thought she was maybe going to get demigoddess powers. But they just gave the powers back to Maui as well, and I thought, oh, that's a bit of a cop-out, really. I was really looking forward to seeing Maui just live a normal life. So I don't know, it was just a bit all over the place, if I'm being honest. And the pacing just felt off. It just felt off. There was moments where I actually checked my watch towards the end of the movie, and I definitely didn't do that in the first one, and I haven't done that for a little while in a movie, so that was unfortunate. If I have to check my watch in a film to see how long we possibly have left, that means a movie's not gripping me enough. And unfortunately, I just feel like Moana 2 did not grip me as much as the first one. So unfortunately, it falls flat in a few areas. So pacing feels choppy, characters getting left behind, and just using this movie as a potential setup movie is not a good idea, if I'm being honest. But yeah, so I'm going to pause this now, and I'm going to give you my overall ranking and final thoughts on Moana 2. That's it. That's my review on Moana 2. Now, overall, what would I rank Moana 2? Well, the original Moana is still a solid 8 out of 10 for me. I still love it, and I'm going to rewatch it again and again and again. And I might rewatch it even more so now that I've seen Moana 2. But it's still a solid 8 out of 10. I love the music, love the pacing, love the characters. All of it was stunning. Moana 2, however, unfortunately, it's going to get a lower ranking. I would say this is generous, but I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Maybe a 5.5 if I'm being a bit cruel. It's about an average movie. It's 5.5 to 6, I think, is probably where it's going to stay for me. It's definitely not better than the first one. I can't say it's an overall terrible movie, because that would be a lie as well. I definitely found some enjoyment in the movie. Like I said, it's visually still stunning, and the voice acting is still really, really strong. And even though I didn't like the music as much, it's still okay music as well. So I can't necessarily say it's a terrible movie, because that would be a lie. But it is definitely not as good as the original, unfortunately. So it's going to get a 5.5 to a 6 out of 10. But that is going to be my review on Moana 2. I hope you did enjoy this video. Leave a like if you did. Comment down below your opinions on Moana 2, but keep it nice, remember, in the comments below. And subscribe if you are new. However, this is going to be the Nerdy Grail signing off. I hope you have an amazing day, and I will see you all next time. Bye for now, everyone.